And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, after coming under heavy criticism for censoring references to ISIS in the transcript of the Orlando's terrorist 911 phone call, well, the Department of Justice has now reversed itself and its decision and has released an unredacted version. It reads, quote, "The dispatcher answers the call. Orlando police dispatcher Omar Mateen responds, Omar Mateen." Then the dispatcher says, "Emergency 911, this is being recorded." He replies, "In the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent." The dispatcher says, "What?" Mateen then proclaims, "Praise be to God," and prayers as well as "Peace be upon the prophet of God. And I want to let you know I'm in Orlando and I did the shootings." Dispatcher asks, "Well, what's your name?" Mateen responds, "My name is, I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi of the Islamic State." The dispatcher asks again, "Okay, what's your name?" Well, then Mateen says, "I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. May God protect him on behalf of the Islamic State." The dispatcher then asks, "All right, where are you at?" He replies, "In Orlando." The dispatcher responds, "Well, where in Orlando?" And that's where the call ends. Also, tonight, in wake of the Orlando terror attack, Donald Trump is suggesting America may need to use profiling to stop the next terror attack. Watch this.
I think profiling is something that we're going to have to start thinking about as a country, and other countries do it. And you look at Israel and you look at others, and they do it, and they do it successfully. And, you know, I hate the concept of profiling, but we have to start using common sense.
And earlier today, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani agreed with Trump's comments. Let's take a look.
Of course you profile. That's what policing is all about. Here's where it's wrong. It's when you do it based on race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, just for that reason, just because you don't like them. But if you're doing it based on hard facts that lead to the protection of the public, like a group of one type.
So you have no problem with what he said?
I have no problem. Of course you should profile based upon hard facts.
Joining us now, the author of Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. He is the Distinguished Chair of Military Theory at Marine Corps University, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, let me start with, I don't believe for a minute that this is the accurate transcript. Now, we've been told that this was translated out of the Arabic and that they came up with the idea of God. Why do I suspect, if we hear the tape, that he says Allah? Is that a fair guess on my part?
Of course it's not the accurate transcript. You're absolutely right, Sean. When you are a jihadi, you don't use the word God. What was he witnessed shouting in the nightclub as he was mowing down his fellow Americans? He wasn't shouting, "God is the greatest" in English. He was shouting, "Allahu Akbar." So the idea that suddenly he translates it into English for the dispatcher is absurd. We won us a really significant victory today, Sean. Common sense won a victory against the political narrative of the DOJ, but they're still trying to fleece us. They're still conning us by saying he said God. He didn't say God to the dispatcher. He clearly said Allah.
Listen, I would bet any amount of money. Now, they said it was from the Arabic interpretation and that their interpretation is God, but I would bet probably very clearly we would hear the word Allah, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. If he's doing it in front of his victims, well, how would he do anything different when he's calling up the dispatcher? So we've won a big victory against political correctness, but they're still pushing back on us, Sean.
All right, you talk about this being a winnable war. Donald Trump brought up the issue of profiling, always highly controversial. I know they do it in Israel, they do it in other countries. We have limited amount of resources as it comes to, for example, the TSA and waiting online and getting on an airplane, and, you know, they select certain people, some randomly, some others, in terms of who gets wanted, who gets extra attention. Should we be wasting those resources on 95-year-old women in wheelchairs or kids in baby carriages? Or if somebody has a Pakistani, Afghan passport, Syrian passport, maybe we ought to spend more time on them. Is that discriminatory in your view, or is that common sense?
I have to agree with Mayor Giuliani. profiling leaves a bad taste in the mouth. It's a pejorative word, but really it's a synonym for common sense. If you're looking for a 6'4", blonde, white-skinned bank robber, you don't go hunting down 4'2" black women. It just doesn't make any sense. Likewise, if you're looking at jihadis, the majority of whom are actually men of a certain age, men of a certain ethnicity, and men who follow one religion in particular, what is the point, as you say, in patting down an 82-year-old Episcopalian grandmother? It's craziness. It's, again, political correctness that spreads us so thin that we are not able to protect our fellow citizens.
All right, Dr. Gorka, always appreciate you being with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean.
Also here tonight with reaction, former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen, and from the Washington Times, Fox News contributor Monica Crowley. Doug, don't you think it said Allah?
Yeah, I think it probably did.
You said it. You think it said Allah?
Of course.
So then why are they lying to us?
I don't know why they're lying, but the real issue to me is, can we develop a coherent strategy to prevent domestic and global terror?
But you're missing the bigger picture. It started in 2009. We have a guy on this program that was an original founder of the Department of Homeland Security, and he's going to tell our audience tonight that when Obama became president, he was told to scrub the names of Muslims that they had built up over time since it was founded in 2003 in a 6-year period, scrub the names of Muslims that were tied to radicals. Why would Obama do that? Why would he say man-caused disasters, workplace violence, overseas contingencies, the
because
JVT?
He's not sufficiently committed to doing what I just said needs to be done, which is to have a coherent plan to eradicate global terror and domestic terror. We need to declare war on ISIS, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. That must be done.
But Hillary and Obama have been wrong every step of the way. Wait, and think about this, Monica. Fast and Furious, guns to kidnappers and cartels. Release the Gitmo detainees. Give $150 billion to Iran. Give Mohammed Morsi, who refers to Jews as descendants of apes and pigs, F-16s.
President Obama and Hillary Clinton are not wrong. They know exactly what the threat is. They just refuse to deal with it. When you ask why the president is approaching this way, and he's done so for the last 7.5 years, it's because he is ideologically allergic to linking Islam with terror. And the reason for that is because he is ideologically allergic to any kind of sustained, serious military engagement in the Middle East. If he makes this linkage, Sean, then he would be forced to take more aggressive action against ISIS and Islamist groups around the world, and he will not do that. He
created the vacuum for ISIS because he politicized the war, as did Hillary, and they pulled out early, and ISIS filled the void. All right, let's examine. This is almost pathological from my perspective. Let's go back and let's quote Nicholas Kristof. This is the New York Times in an interview with Obama, talking about his time in Jakarta in a Muslim school. He actually was quoted as saying, Mr. Obama recalled the opening lines of the Arabic call to prayer, reciting them with a first-rate accent. In a remark that seemed delightfully uncalculated, it'll give Alabama voters heart attacks, Obama described the call to prayer as one of the prettiest sounds at sunset. Okay, and then let's look at his comments. Remember, he thought ISIS was the JV team. Before Paris, he said ISIS was contained. He's been wrong every step of the way. Let's go to his comments on Islam.
Islam is not part of the problem in combating violent extremism. It is an important part of promoting peace. Our enemies respect no religious freedom. Al-Qaeda's cause is not Islam. It's a gross distortion of Islam. The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. ISIL is not Islamic. No religion condones the killing of innocents, and the vast majority of ISIL's victims have been Muslim. We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
All right, Doug, I listen. The Islamic State is not Islamic. Then he releases Gitmo prisoners. Then he gives guns to drug runners and drug cartels. Then he gives arms to Mohammed Morsi, formerly of the Muslim Brotherhood. All of these things tells me, and then he says all these things about Islam. How can he be so wrong so often about the #1 threat that this country faces?
All I can say, Sean, is we need dramatically...
That's not my question. How can he be so wrong?
I can't read his mind. I can tell you, as a policymaker, we need to declare war, send troops to the Middle
Hillary's
East.
not going to do that. You're supporting Hillary.
She has said that this is radical Islamic
She was
terror.
there. Wait a minute. She was there every step of the way. There for Fast and Furious, there for the release of detainees, there for the beginning of the negotiations with Iran,
Sean,
there for the money for Morsi.
She is being held accountable by you and others. She is moving in the right direction. Donald Trump needs a plan which is yet to be articulated.
All right, last word,
That's
Monica.
what's most important.
Yeah, I mean, you run this montage. Here we are 7.5 years into this man's presidency, and people are still trying to figure out who he is and what he believes. His father was a Muslim. His stepfather was a Muslim. He spent a good deal of time in Indonesia, the most populous Muslim country in the world. He clearly has an affinity for Islam, okay? That has informed all of his decisions to this very day. So now the question is, to Doug's point, yes, of course we need that strategy. We will never get it under this president. So we better hope to God we survive the next 6.5 months of his presidency until we get a new commander-in-chief.
Yeah, Hillary's no better. She was there for all the bad decisions.
Secretary of State.
Donald Trump has to articulate a plan that hasn't been available yet.
He did have his foreign policy speech. He did say we're going to bomb the living out of them.
But he says he's going to pull back from Europe and pull back from the Middle
He said
East.
it's going to be America first, and we're going to let the others do the fighting. I was very clear.
We need to declare war, and that means the U.S. needs to be involved.